Have you ever really stopped to think about it? In just a few short years, we go from being these completely helpless little beings to walking, talking, thinking people. It is without a doubt one of the most incredible transformations on the planet. So, what's the roadmap? How does this all happen? So, how does that even happen? You might think it's just chaos, right? A big, messy explosion of growth. But it's not like that at all. It turns out there's a surprisingly predictable path, a series of stages that build on one another, from that very first smile to their first big, independent decision. Let's trace that path together. The best way to think about it is like building a house. You can't just throw the roof on first, right? Of course not. You have to lay a solid foundation, then you put up the frame, and then you work on the walls. Well, human development follows that same kind of logic, a universal order that builds from the ground up. And that order starts with two very simple rules for how our bodies grow. First, development moves from head to toe. A baby gets control of their head and neck way before they can even think about taking a step. It's a fancy term, cephalocaudal, but that's all it means. At the exact same time, growth moves from the inside out, from the core to the fingertips. So they'll master those big, clumsy arm swings long before they can do that delicate little pincer grasp to pick up a single piece of cereal. It's like a built-in instruction manual for the body. All right, so where does this journey really kick off? We've got to start at the beginning, right? Infancy. And that first year is, wow. It is arguably the most critical year. Where the foundation for literally everything else, trust, safety, learning, gets poured. Imagine you're a brand new baby. The world is just a blur of lights and sounds and feelings. Your entire mission, your one big psychological job, is to figure out the answer to a single question. Is this place safe? And every single time a caregiver answers a cry, gives a cuddle, or offers food, they're casting a vote for yes. This is the heart of what we call trust versus mistrust. It's how a baby learns, deep in their bones, that the world is a good and reliable place. And while all that deep psychological work is happening, their bodies are just in overdrive. Get this, in just the first 12 months, an infant will usually triple their birth weight. Triple it! To put that in perspective, that's like a 150-pound adult gaining 300 pounds in a single year. It is the fastest period of growth we will ever experience in our entire lives. And you can actually see this incredible development happening in real time through these milestones. That first real smile at around 2 months? Yeah, it's adorable, but it's also the start of a genuine social connection. When they get obsessed with peekaboo a few months later, they're actually earning a PhD in object permanence. The mind-blowing idea that even if I can't see you, you still exist. And that tough phase of separation anxiety, it's actually a great sign. It means they've formed a secure, trusting bond with you. So what's our role in all this? It's pretty simple, really. It's about creating a safe world for them to explore. That just means focusing on the basics. A safe place to sleep, a properly installed car seat, and being super vigilant about small objects because, they're going to investigate everything with their mouth. The safer we make their world, the more brain power they can dedicate to learning. Okay, so you finally got the hang of infancy, you're feeling pretty confident, and then bam! Everything flips on its head. Welcome to toddlerhood, the whirlwind years of me do it. This is where a little person with a very big will of their own starts to emerge. Oh man, if you've ever been around a toddler, you know the word. No, right? It can feel like it's their answer to everything. But here's the thing. It's not really about defiance. It's their first big declaration of independence. It's them shouting, I am my own person. And that is what this stage, autonomy versus shame and doubt, is all about. Every me do it is a fight for a sense of control, and it is a messy but totally essential step. And those classic toddler meltdowns? Well, a huge part of that frustration comes from a simple mismatch. Seriously, just for a second, imagine knowing exactly what you want, but you just can't find the words to say it. That is a toddler's world 24/7. What they understand, their receptive language, is light years ahead of what their mouth can actually say. That giant gap is the source of so much of their frustration. So the key strategy here is to honor that drive for independence, but, with guardrails. This is when child-proofing the house goes into overdrive. And offering simple choices, do you want the red cup or the blue cup, is like a secret weapon. It gives them a feeling of control. Oh, and when you see them playing near other kids, but not really with them, that's called parallel play, and it's a completely normal first step into the social world.
All right, next up, we leave the whirlwind of toddlerhood and enter a completely different dimension, a world of pure imagination. This is where a cardboard box is a spaceship and a blanket is a superhero cape. Welcome to the magical years of the preschooler.
So now their whole focus shifts. It goes from I can do it to, hey, I have an idea. This stage is all about initiative versus guilt. They aren't just doing things anymore, they're planning them. They're becoming these little directors of their own plays, inventing games, and building entire worlds. And really, our main job is to just be their biggest fan. And you see this creative spark just popping up everywhere. Remember that parallel play? Well, now they're actually playing with each other, sharing, compromising, having their first real arguments. And you start to see a real conscience bloom. They actually feel bad when they break a rule. And all those hours spent scribbling with crayons and stacking blocks, that's not just fun. It's serious work getting their hands strong and ready for writing. And because their brains can suddenly understand and remember rules, this is the golden age to start teaching them how to be safe in the world. You know, things like looking both ways before crossing the street or always wearing a helmet on a bike. It's also about finding that balance between their amazing fantasy worlds and the real world and making sure that hands-on, creative play always wins out over screen time. And then the world just gets bigger. They step out of that cozy little bubble of home and preschool and walk into the big, complex world of school. And all of a sudden, what their friends, their teachers, and their teammates think, well, it starts to matter a lot. Now, the big question floating around in their head is, am I good at stuff? Psychologists call this stage industry versus inferiority. It's all about feeling competent and productive. And stuff can be anything. It could be acing a math test, learning a new move in soccer, or totally mastering a level in a video game. Getting that feeling of success is what builds their self-esteem. At the same time, their brand gets this huge software update. It's pretty amazing. You know that classic experiment with two different shaped glasses holding the same amount of water? A preschooler will always swear the tall, skinny glass has more. But a school-age kid, nope. They've unlocked logic. They get the principle of conservation, that the amount of water didn't change. Their thinking is now way more grounded in reality. So how do you support this new drive to be good at stuff? Well, you give them lots of chances to be good at stuff. This is why things like team sports, clubs, music lessons, all those organized activities are so perfect for this age. They provide a space to learn rules, work with others, and see themselves get better at something. It's all about feeding that hunger to feel capable. And that brings us to the final massive overhaul of childhood, adolescence, the teenage years. Man, it's like a psychological earthquake. Everything is shaking and changing. And it's all centered on trying to answer the single most important question a person ever asks. And that one huge question is, who am I? This is the great challenge of identity versus role confusion, and it explains so much. It's why they might try on different personalities, like they're trying on clothes. It's why they question everything they were taught. It can look like they're just being difficult, but really, they are on a messy, confusing, and absolutely vital mission to figure out who they are, separate from everyone else. So let's reframe some of that classic teen behavior. That scary risk-taking, a lot of it is fueled by a brain that's literally wired for novelty and a deep need to test their own limits. The constant arguments with parents, that's actually a necessary process of them figuring out where you end and they begin. And the fact that friends are suddenly the most important people on Earth, well, that's their social lab for figuring out who they are and where they fit in. The best thing we can do is just try to keep the lines of communication open, even when it feels really, really hard. So when you zoom out and look at the whole journey, from a completely dependent baby to a fiercely independent teenager, you realize it's not just a series of random phases to get through, it's a chain reaction. The trust they build as an infant is what allows them to be a brave toddler. The initiative they discover as a preschooler is what fuels their success in school. It's all connected. So the real question isn't just about getting through each stage, but about seeing how, with every single step, we're helping them build the person they're going to become.